It's the Pikey and Loughz Show, Talking Taipans. With Chris Pike and Alex Loughton come to you with everything that is 100% Taipans. Let's go. It's Talkin Taipans.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Pikey and Loughz Show. We're talking Taipans. I'm Chris Pike, your co-host. Plenty to talk about once again, so let's not waste any time, Loughz. Let's get straight into it. Alex Loughton, thanks for joining me. How do I find you on this fine evening?
Mate, it's a stormy one here in Cairns. You know, the rain has certainly set in. Is it the Taipans rain settling in for the rest of the season in the playoffs? Only time will tell, but very close. The game didn't feel like a one-point game. It felt like the Taipans had it in control, but it was just a little bit too close for comfort, I think, for a lot of fans in South East Melbourne Phoenix land, watching that game down there in Melbourne. So, obviously a must-win game to snag one on the road and just give them a little bit of breathing space.
This episode of the Pikey and Loughz Show proudly brought to you by Cairns Total Physio. Less pain, more life.
Absolutely. You're referring to the 103-102 win over the South East Melbourne Phoenix at the State Basketball Centre down there in Melbourne. It improved the Taipans to 14-10, so they're getting ever so closer to locking in that finals berth. So we'll obviously dissect all of that as we go along on this week's show, but it would be remiss of us not to start this show, and I think it's the talk of not only the basketball world, but the sporting world and the whole world. I don't know how to put it into words, but the devastating loss of Kobe Bryant.
It doesn't seem real, does it? Like, I mean, you would have woken up as well, and all over social media, you know, death of Kobe Bryant, sources confirm. And you're like, nah, this is one of those, you know, and you look again, you're like, bloody hell, now ESPN's, you know, now everyone, and then the county confirms it. I'm like, what? It doesn't make sense, because it just seems like how does this happen? It's so much awareness around, you know, weather and, you know, high-grade helicopters and things, and you just think and to lose such a massive star who was just starting to enjoy, you know, watching the games courtside with his daughter and pumping millions into underprivileged kids and just really starting to, you know, get involved, you know, in life after playing and to have it cut short. And, man, it just doesn't seem real.
No, it didn't. And there was just, the more you heard about it, the more heartbreaking the story got. The fact that you see all of this vision and you hear all of the ways that he was talking about not only his 13-year-old daughter that did pass away as well, Gigi, but his other 3 daughters, and just how much he loved his daughters and how much he had dedicated his life to now providing them the best possible life. And the fact that Gigi was a basketball player and wanted to be a WNBA star, I think that was a bonus. I think no matter what she wanted to do, she might have wanted to be a scientist, and I think Kobe would have been just as supportive and by her side through that. But just to see that bond with a father and his kids, it just made it all that more heartbreaking. And like you said, the fact that he was now getting to enjoy his life, he would have been probably, along with Michael Jordan, I think the player who spent his 20-year career putting the most pressure on himself. I don't think he would have let himself relax for a second while he was playing.
No.
But the last couple of years, it looked like he was getting to enjoy life. He was in a terrific place, and he was doing so much good things for so many people. And the fact that he was on his way to a basketball tournament with his daughter, with his team that he was coaching, and a tournament held at his Mumba Academy, there's just so much about it that was just heartbreaking.
Oh, and so many, uplifting words. I mean, LeBron James saying, look, can we stop trying to compare eras, stop trying to compare players, and let's stop, under-respecting greatness, because he really was up there with, he's at the top, when you think about how amazing his career was. I think LeBron's words were, got to stop under-appreciating greatness. And I just thought that totally rang true. So just the outpouring of love for Kobe, it just makes me, almost mad in a sense that it's happened. I'm just mystified how it can happen. But, it's starting to sink in a bit, and it's just shocking the whole basketball community. And, and it was 9 people on the helicopter. It wasn't just, it's not just, mourning the loss of Kobe and his daughter. There was a baseball coach and his son and wife, I believe, and it's that whole group that was on there, and to leave, the wife that stood by his side through thick and thin, with a 7-month-old now, like just starting to, it's just so heart-wrenching.
The fact that both of us, we're getting close to that 41-year-old age bracket. You've got daughters yourself. Does that make it hit home even more for you, given your situation?
Oh, absolutely. And I think I read something that was quite, it was sort of not a poem or anything, but the words were basically Kobe's greatest fears would have been realised that, they were going down and he wasn't able to protect his daughter, wouldn't be able to survive this event, this, in that moment, his greatest fears would have been realised. And I was just thought, that's pretty tough to handle as well. I mean, the only silver lining is that he was there holding us, saying, look, Dad's here, like at least that kind of thing, perhaps a small amount of comfort, but for them, but it just such a huge tragedy, and would have been just the most gut-wrenching set of circumstances in those final few seconds.
I'm not sure how to move on from it, because it's just such a massive thing that's happened, and because both of us have had such a big involvement with basketball throughout our whole lives, it just seems to hit you that little bit harder, and I think it's crept up on a lot of us how much it actually affects you as well. So I'm not sure how to move on from it.
Well,
but
the NBL,
we'll do our best.
I think the NBL, holding that 24-second moment before the games coming up in recognition of Kobe and his contribution to the game would be a nice touch. So, and I believe that's happening in all the games. That's my understanding. So, a small tribute, and obviously you see the Australian players that have played alongside Kobe pouring out their tributes as well. So certainly, just a shocking point in 2020, just a bad start. Just incomprehensible, but. The games will continue. I think that LA Lakers and Clippers game postponed, but at some point, the games continue in honor of, pursuing great basketball. Something that Kobe would want is the play to continue.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of daughters, you've now got a daughter who's just started high school. How did she handle her first day? Oh, no, it was tears today, Pikey. The fear of the unknown, but soon to be settled in and finding new friends. It was a bit tough this morning, but all smiles by the end of the day. So all happy days here in Cairns. As I believe you have holidays still for another week over that way, over school holidays still another week. Yeah, I think we've still got one more week of holidays. The kids go back next week. Yeah, well, kids back in school, and certainly looking forward to the last home game, obviously, for the Taipans this week. But plenty of action going on this past round, Pikey. Certainly keen to get stuck in. Let's get into it. And we will have a very special interview as well. We'll let you know who that's with shortly, and we'll also introduce that, because that'll be something you don't want to miss. But let's get into the game down in Melbourne against the South East Melbourne Phoenix. When you go back to a venue that... Well, not so much the venue, but the same city against the same opponent, where you lost a game that you should have never lost. Is that in the back of your mind when you do go back to play the same team in the same city again? There's a little bit of a voodoo curse that you sort of you go, oh, hang on a minute. Oh, whoops, that was the sideline where and that's the shot that he took when he. So I think they would have. I think they would have had their eyes on the prize more than anything, and certainly didn't want to make the same mistakes twice. So if anything, learned the lesson the hard way. Interestingly, a similar situation occurred down the stretch. Ended in a 5-second violation call. They still put Dane Pino on the sideline. We still had a point guard inbound the ball, and we got a 5-second call and a turnover nonetheless. So marginally better, improved in that we won by a point, but still maybe one other step to take to avoid the situation totally. It's a few times now. The last two times it's happened with a bit of a fade out. At least the Taipans have had on to win. There was the game against Brisbane at home, and then this one against the Phoenix. But the fact that it's happened on an ongoing basis, are you taking the positives, the fact that the team's able to build up match-winning leads, or do you need to find a way to execute better when the other team really puts the pressure on down the stretch?
Well, I think the Taipans have exposed themselves a little bit from sidelines and inbounds play. We saw a couple of sideline plays, even at home, is just a little bit of lax in terms of getting open. And then once that player receives the ball, not sort of sensing a double team's coming or something. There was one on the baseline play at home last game. It came into Mirko Jeric to then seem like an easy pass back to Machado, but then the double team just swallowed it up and it ended up being a turnover. So, it's happened multiple times. It's almost like, enough's enough. Like this inbound play's got to get sorted. Like the baseline play under pressure has to get sorted. And maybe it's a different play. They're starting to bring the bigs way forward rather than being set back in the front court there. So they're bringing the bigs way up into the back court, which they'll need to, and almost have a 4-on-4 in the back court, which I think they need. They need options to pass in, and then the point guard inbounding to swoop by. I mean, that's a baseline inbounds. The late situation on the sideline needs to be addressed. Maybe you have your taller player inbound because they're putting the 7-foot guy on the inbound passer, jumping, doing the wacky waving, inflatable flailing arm tube man defense on the inbound. And if you have a point guard on there, it's almost too small. But you've just got to have something really solid to go to. And they don't seem to have been able to find that just yet. But they're going to need it. They're going to need it up their sleeve, Pikey, come playoff time, because this is going to happen again.
The opposition knows it's a weakness now, so they'll try to exploit it. I understand why it's Machado taking the passes, because he's the best passer in the team and he's got the best vision in the team. But do they have to mix it up? Does somebody else have to step up to take those passes?
Well, he's anchored to the spot. Passes? He can't move. You're putting the smallest guy who's anchored to a pivot foot stuck on the ground. He can't move. And you're trying to make him make a pass over, probably a 7'5" wingspan. So maybe it's the best passing big, but you've got to have three options to the ball. You've got to have, if you're going to do a little curl play, then you've got to have one to the corner, one to the halfway, and one running back straight to the ball. So the guy on the inbounds, you can fake to one of those two, and the opposite way has got to be open somewhere. So either way, you've got to have basically collision or a mashup of players, and then all of a sudden 3 players present to the ball, and maybe one option further back or a safety type pass over the top. Yep. But either way, you need 3 guys coming to the ball at the exact same time, not one to the corner and then they close off that, and then one to the middle, then they close off that, one to the halfway line as an option, and then the defense close off that. You need to have all 3 coming at the same time so that the guy on the inbounds player can't guard all 3 options at the same time. So 3 guys are making 3 solid leads out of their little play.
Well, exactly. You can't shut them all down if you're the opposition, so that would make sense. Aside from that, I thought there was a lot to like about the performance, especially the first 3 quarters. And aside from the 6 turnovers, Scotty Machado was terrific again, 24 points, 8 assists. DJ Newell, if you just factor in the last 15 or 16 games of the season, he's the leading scorer in the league, and he had another 23 points. And if you factor in what he's doing defensively, he's having a remarkable season. Majuk Deng, he stepped up again with 20 more points. I thought Nate Jawai, especially in the first half, was really important to set the tone and to be a presence inside. Cam Oliver, another double-double. I thought there was a lot to like about how the team performed.
Look, some really good performances. I think Nate had a milestone game, 150 NBL games, yep. And he was really steady against some really young bigs in like Dane Pino, Trist. He was just having his way on the post one-on-one moves, and they weren't sending the double team. On one of the buckets, you see Dane Pino go like, "Where's the double? Like, where's the?" So Nate was solid. Now, Scotty Machado, I was thinking about this today, Pikey. He's played so well, right? He's averaging 16 and 8, 16 points, 8 assists. Now, if I said to you, Scotty Machado was only scoring 15 points and 7 assists, you'd say they're pretty good numbers, right? Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
If Scotty Machado scored 1 point less and averaged 1 assist less, the Taipans would have 11 games won. And they'd be in the logjam, potentially 7. If he didn't play as good as he is, as in if he's not 16 points and 8 assists a game, if he was only 15 points and 7 assists, the Taipans are nothing more than last year, third off the bottom perhaps, or fighting in that logjam. Like this is how fine an edge it is to when we're saying the Taipans are next level this year. It's such a fine edge of success and and a nothing season. So every bit Scotty Machado has been just exceptional, and helping the Taipans elevate to put themselves in a position to be really strong in the playoffs. So I mean, it's it's an interesting one that I was just thinking about today. I was like, how many games are actually decided by if Scotty wasn't as on top of everything as he is this year. So he really is the difference maker. I mean, yes, I could say if DJ Newell didn't score 4 points a game, then yes, it's the same situation.
Yep.
But I think it's, to me, the keystone with this whole Taipan's success this year is Machado without a doubt. Hence his sort of second sort of place in the bookies in terms of MVP vote. But it really is quite a unique skill set that he's brought to the team this year. And another great performance. 6 turnovers, you'd probably prefer that to be more 2 or 3 turnovers in that game. But you just see he's just so solid. You just have so much confidence when you watch him play. You just assured as a fan and as a teammate that it's going to be a solid night's game and someone you can put your trust in.
You mentioned DJ Newell before, and I touched on how good of a job he's doing scoring before, and you can't factor out how good he has been defensively as well. And I think he has to be the defensive player of the year right now as well. But how much better offensively has he been because of having Scotty Machado next to him? How many points extra that he's scoring do you think you would put down to Scotty's influence next to him?
It's hard to say. I think last year he was hampered a little bit with a shoulder complaint that seemed to reoccur, and he fought it off bravely in terms of training and games, but maybe it's had a bigger impact on last year's numbers than you sort of think. So how much I think Scotty Machado's play has really opened up the floor for DJ, but I don't want to sit here and discredit DJ's ability to make his own moves, because he certainly can. He can create distance between his defender really well. Like he's got the step back game, he's actually got a change of pace game, and he's got the strength to spin off someone and create space as well for a little lazy right hand hook or a throwdown. He's been elevating a lot easier off the 1 foot. So I think he's got himself in better shape. So he's done himself a due diligence and good service. I think he's had the ability to. He's got a bit of sneakiness about him. Like he looks kind of a thicker set kind of dude. Maybe not as quick, but I think he's got some power in those cankles there. His knees go down to his ankles. You don't see much definition in the calves, and I've paid him out about it. His socks just go straight up and down. There's no sort of definition there. So I do jest a bit with that, but I think what he's got is a real good nous for. He's just able to get his shot off. I mean, and that's the thing. You get your shot off on different kinds of players. If it's a taller player, then you use your strength, like your muscle size, and you're able to dislodge them to get your shot off. If it's someone smaller than you, then you take them to the rack, or you body up on them to get that one quick step past them, and then you've put them in submission. Or you against a big, you just toy with it. You toy with the bigs, and a little fake here, a little hezzy, little step back, and you've created a 3-ball for yourself. So I've seen the full kitchen sink of DJ moves, and he's just finished at such a high rate. How much of it is Scotty? I think at least the 4 to 6 points a game has, especially early on in the season, has set up his confidence, and I think he's run with it. So, he's taken over into a new frame of mind and a scoring frame of mind that, I think from about, pretty early on, he set in for 20 a game. Like it just jumped really quick, and I think, it was greatly helped by Scotty Machado, particularly at the start, or as well as not only just receiving a pass from Scotty, but Scotty drawing all the attention, and DJ Newell being at the receiving end of some good passing play. So I think it's been a mix. A lot of assists and open shots at the start of the season, but he's grown in confidence and just taken over, what he's felt is rightfully his calling, and being a prolific scorer and a finisher down the stretch. That's the main thing, I think. If I say Scotty Machado's a pass first, team team player and then a dynamic, scorer second, then DJ Newbell's complete mindset is, I'm going to be an absolute scorer and a force. Yep. Not that he can't pass, he will make the extra pass, but his mindset is really crystal clear.
Yeah, and he did have 7 assists in that game against the Phoenix too, so he can do that job. But, it's remarkable how his scoring has coincided with the way the team has fluctuated this season. They started 2-6, the Taipans, and at that point, DJ was averaging 15 points a game. Ever since then, the team's been on fire. I think they've now won 12 of the last 16, and he's averaged about 22 points in that time. So it's amazing how...
The Hawks lost by 1 point down there. I think he had 27. I think he exploded that game only for the team to come up short. But from that moment, because he had a massive fourth quarter, and I think the things kind of clicked into place roughly around then, and then the next game was against the Wildcats, who they demolished. So it was right around that early stage, which is really interesting. But yeah, you're right. 15 a game to start the season. It's not going to get it done. 25 a game. Now you're talking now there's some runs on the board.
Now one more thing, and then we'll move on. Courtney, I'm surprised we still haven't seen him. It's obviously a more serious ankle injury than anybody thought when he first did it, because I think it was back in the middle of December when he first went down hurt. Do you expect to see him back soon?
I've just got some queries around it. I'm wondering whether they're trying to protect his averages, and I don't mean the coaching staff. I mean, and it's not taking this the wrong.
Perhaps similar to LaMelo Ball and RJ Hampton. Yeah,
I think there's maybe a thought going on here that if he comes back and it's half-baked, then his numbers will only be half-baked and his averages come down, which ruins, any kind of further hope to keep the numbers solid for going into the NBA draft. I don't know if that's exactly the case, but that could possibly be one thing. The other thing is it might not only be an ankle, strain or whatever. It could be quite a high ankle sort of strain or further up the calf as well, or a secondary tightness that's coming back to training or something like that. So it's either something that's happened secondary that they've really had to rest up a second time for, or it's the first one where, you've averaged 11 point something points a game as a rookie. Do you jeopardize those numbers by coming back and trying to, work your way in with minimal minutes until you get healthy again? I don't know which way it's sort of gone, but either way, every game that you're out now, it takes and sort of an extra game to find your groove. So at some point, you're going to have to maybe tough out a few minutes to get your groove back in time for the playoffs. Otherwise, it's going to be too late.
It's an interesting one. His numbers are good, like you said. Yeah, his numbers are good, 11.4 points, 6.8 rebounds a game. So maybe if they fall down, then suddenly he's not as attractive for an NBA draft point of view. But in terms of this season at the Taipans, we've only got 4 games now to go in the regular season. Then we've got the fever break, and he's part of that Boomer squad, but you would have to think it's unlikely he'll end up making that final 12, given he hasn't played much now. But how many of these next 4 games does he need to try to play in to make sure you can get something out of him come playoff time?
There's 2 ways to go. If the Taipans feel they only need one more win to lock away playoffs, then maybe you don't take the chance. Maybe you buy another couple of weeks and say, hey mate, look, you got to get this thing right. Otherwise, good to us in the playoffs. We're on half a league. We need the full force Kuat frisky and footloose on the court, going after loose balls and giving us extra possessions. Maybe that's the thinking now. If they got to like their chances at home with a LaMelo Ball less Hawks, not to underestimate the voodoo team for the bogey team for the Taipans in 2020, perhaps a team that's cost them first place. If you think about the 3 games, 3 wins they're on top of the ladder right now if they win against the bottom side at the start of the season. Maybe they like their chances to close out one extra win. That puts them at 15 wins. I think I'd be feeling better if it was 16 wins. So they'd have to. For me, I'd like to see them win the home game and then one more on the road. But it might not need be the case. My original numbers was obviously 16 wins get you in a logjam. It looks like it's going to be less. It looks like it's going to be that 14 win mark gets you in a logjam, or 15 win mark, which is 14 is going 500 for the year. So. It's quite an interesting unfolding of events, I think, for those teams sort of caught in that sort of bubble.
Yeah, it's fascinating. The most that the 5th place team could finish on is 15 wins right now, and that's probably unlikely. So you would expect they're going to be, whoever finishes fifth is probably going to be on 14 wins. So let's take a look at that quickly, and then we'll get to our interview for this week. So to me, I think the top 4 set. I don't see it changing from here, but I'll get your thoughts shortly. So I've got the Sydney Kings on top at 18 and 7, and you got the Perth Wildcats 16 and 8, and I think they're battling over top spot. They play this weekend, which could end up deciding that top spot. And then I think Cairns at 14 and 10, they probably need one more win out of the last 4 to make sure of it. I think 2 more wins probably make sure of third spot. And then you got Brisbane at 13 and 11, having won 5 straight, and they're 2 games clear of Melbourne, who are 11 and 12, New Zealand 11 and 13, Adelaide 11 and 13, and then you got the Phoenix and the Hawks who are out of it. So right now we've got the top 4 teams all on winning streaks. We've got the bottom 5 all on losing streaks. I can't see it changing over the last 3 weeks. What do you think?
Melbourne United just didn't look great at all against Sydney Kings.
No,
5 assists for the game versus, Sydney had like 16 or 18 or something assists. It's just not winning hoops. They were just sort of whoever caught the ball over halfway was going for their little one-on-one move and launching. It was probably kind of painful to watch a bit, I think, with the way United were playing. So I'm with you, Pikey. I don't see them closing out this season in any kind of positive fashion. I think Adelaide really needed to win that game at home. Yeah, they
had to beat Brisbane.
Yeah. So that they, if they were going to be any chance, they would have had to hold fort and get the job done in their nice stadium there in Adelaide. So if they they didn't turn up to the convention centre here the other game. They obviously didn't get it done down there. So I agree. I think Adelaide are toast. DJ and Randall are happy for their contracts, based on how they're playing, but it's, the team's not going to improve from here. So, yeah, it really is. I guess that bottom sort of 5 was a battle of who wanted it less, and, that's sort of washed up that way. So, and credit to Brisbane and credit to Taipans for being on the move the way they are, and I think that's pretty much it.
I think the Breakers are the best of that bunch. And they're playing really good basketball right now.
I didn't include, I think the Breakers are the only X factor here.
Yeah, they probably just don't have enough time now. They've only got 4 games left and they're on 11 wins. So the best they can do is get to 15. So I think that's going to make it tough for them. But, gee, if they stuck in, that'd be dangerous because they're playing really well. If Scotty
Hobson was healthy that whole season, totally different story, isn't it? Like, it's just, I don't know what to make of it because you got Dan Shamir, or how do you say?
Yeah, no, you got it.
Shamir, European sort of style coach. I guess he's just trying to find his way earlier on in the season. It was a very short pre-season, getting the guys together and having that injury of Hobson and having to replace with, whatever was available. And Rice, brought in the circus that he brought in with his behaviour. So I kind of feel for the coach a bit because now with Hobson back and them rolling, like he looks like a great coach. Like they're on fire and they're playing well. So you go, well, that's great coaching. Like they're back, and they're just, it might be a little bit too little, too late. But it's a bizarre one. And I just think what could have been if Hobson, because I quite rate the way he plays, and he's a tall guard, really effective and really high elevation on his shot. So he's able to have his way with a lot of the guards in the league and getting his shot off. So I mean, all their players have been playing next level now. Weeksy's been putting in big numbers. Rob Loughz had career games. So can they catch Brisbane? Does Brisbane have to stumble a bit? What has to happen here?
No, Brisbane will have to stumble. So Brisbane's on 13 wins now.
So they've got a few home games too.
They play each other. So Brisbane's got a tough run. They got Melbourne, New Zealand, Perth, and Cairns to finish with, but 3 of those are at home. But if New Zealand beats Brisbane in that when they play each other, then suddenly they only need to pick up 1 more game, and the Breakers they've got a better run. They played the 36ers, the Hawks, and the Phoenix. So if the Breakers win all 4 of those, they could still make it because one of those is picking up a win over the Bullets.
Well, so, I think maybe hold on to your hat for that fourth spot. I mean, I think the Taipans are going to be strong to finish 3rd, and I think that New Zealand could really push that 4th place down to the wire.
Well, let's just finish on that because you haven't been willing to lock in the Taipans yet. Are they locked in just yet, or what do you need to see still?
I'm pretty confident of a 14-point win against the Hawks and a locking in of the third place for 15 wins and a bit of a free swing for the last 3 away games. Still, I think they're still going to play well on the road, but they've got their cards to play. So those last 3 games away, won't probably have much effect. But they still want to be playing good basketball. They just won't have to risk anything injury-wise, health-wise. If that little niggle with Cam Oliver in the Phoenix game looked like a little stinger. He kind of came back, but you have a sleep and a flight. The ankle can sort of blow off a bit, so I'm sure it's being tended to. And whether or not he needs to play big minutes against the Hawks, I don't think he will play many minutes, which will be a good opportunity for Deng to boost some more confidence and for Chris Levick to do his thing and come in, and also Nate can play more minutes too, feast on some solid minutes. I think he would do him a world of good as well, just to have a big meal on the floor and just get everyone sort of top up their confidence for the next few games.
This episode of the Pikey and Loughz Show proudly brought to you by Cairns Total Physio. Less pain, more life.
Okay, let's move on because we've got a special guest on our show this week, and he's a former teammate of yours and a former opponent of yours. He's an NBL championship winner. He's still based in Cairns. Who can we look forward to?
Mate, nothing more bigger than his personality than his cankle. So his cankle and his personality are on par. Very, very big, very big, jovial player, great teammate. Can't say anything bad about this guy. Matthew Burston is the number 22. We won a state champs together back in good old under-18s, Pikey. So we've been around the traps together for many, many years, and it's great to catch up with him on all things hoops during the championship year that he had at South Dragons, as well as life after basketball.
All right, I'm here with Matthew Burston, El Burstador. Before we get into any questions, Matt, just a quick brief rundown. Matty's obviously played many teams, the Wildcats, Adelaide, South Dragons, Melbourne Tigers, Cairns Taipans. He's also been playing in Qatar, won a championship with the South Dragons back in the 08-09 season. Career 55% field goal percentage, if you please. Matt Burston, how are you today?
Very well, Loughzy Loughton. Thanks for having me, mate. It's really good.
That's all right, mate. Just the championship with South Dragons, it's 11 years ago now. Do you have some fond memories of that year, as you would? But did you just have a 10-year reunion as such? What's the kind of bonds that you've forged within that championship year?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely probably one of the highlights from my career, obviously winning the championship. But I suppose from where we came from with the Dragons, the club had just sort of started up 2 years before that, and we've been, bottom of the ladder, and then obviously the powers to be sort of recruited Brian Gorgian, who was like a superstar coach, and managed to sort of get a pretty solid team together. And it's one of those things where just everything came together. We obviously felt like we were the hardest working team sort of off the court, but then and on the court at the training ground, but then just played hard, played for each other, and it was pretty special moment to be a part of that. And obviously winning the championship and sort of having that bond and that sort of connection, you sort of forge memories and lifelong bonds with players like guys like sort of Nathan Hebler, people may or may not remember, guys off the bench that were just fantastic. You walk down the streets of Geelong and just say, hey mate, how you going? And remember that special time we accomplished this. And so definitely we had a 10-year reunion last year down in Melbourne. Unfortunately I couldn't make it, and a few of the guys were overseas and couldn't fly back for it. But Joe Ingles, who's gone on to much bigger and better things, and then go superstar with the Utah Jazz, came back. They're a good bunch of guys getting together and sort of reliving that time, which was really special.
So a few other players on that team as well. Adam Gibson, obviously clocking over 400 games now down at the Phoenix. There was a couple of imports I just want to touch on. So Tremel Darden, I remember not being like totally intimidated by his play during that year, but all of a sudden in that grand final series, he just went off for 27 points one game. It's a bit of an X factor. I feel like those teams, chips fall into play, but then there's also an X factor. Do you feel like he sort of played above, what he showed during the year?
Absolutely. I mean, you definitely hear about sort of X factors and, come finals where the certain players can sort of step up. And, the grand final season with the Tigers, like grand final series, was a fantastic battle. Like, we won at home, then they made some changes and adjustments they won. It was really like a chess match with the coaches and back and forth. Went to game 5. It was pretty even at half time where, we were unsure how we were going to go, and then come the third quarter, he came out with like 24 or 27 points alone in that third quarter and just basically put us on his shoulders and won us the championship game. So, he was up and down throughout the season, but definitely had that skill set and ability to make those sort of plays. And then obviously from there, he's gone to, again, like Joe Ingles, make bigger and better things, and went over to EuroLeague, played for some massive teams over in Europe, and has had a really sort of successful contract or career. And then another import we had was Dante Smith, who was only in league for a year, unfortunately, but an ex-NBA guy, made a great career, forged a great career in China and Puerto Rico, and played all over the place. And
did you have a player get injured did he come in halfway during the year?
Yeah, I think Cortez Groves sort of went down with an injury, unfortunately. So he was another great import in this league that did really well with Illawarra back in the day, or Wollongong. And he was a great player, great guy on and off the court. But unfortunately, with his injury, it sort of paved the way for Dante Smith to come in. And he definitely sort of helped pick things up. And it was sort of went on. I think we had it was like 27-3 record. So definitely finished on top of the ladder and sort of set ourselves up in a great position to win the championship.
So still with hurdles and injuries, you still sort of managed to find a way and put yourselves in a position to, obviously take it out after coming, like, as you said, bottom of the tables the year before. Is this, do you sort of get the feeling with the Taipans, it could just be one of those years where it just all falls into place? Could they actually get it done and achieve glory this year with this team?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because I was saying to someone the other day that, it's not out of the realm that can happen. Like, we were sort of living proof that you can finish last and then, go on to win a championship the following year. And these guys are fun to watch. They're great. The Taipans are, they're playing for each other. They've obviously got the 3 imports that sort of built the team around and that are fantastic and playing bloody well. But then they've also got the role players that are doing their job, and everyone seems to be having fun. And, there's no selfishness, people making an extra pass, people actually sort of rotating on defence and helping the teammates out. So, I definitely see a lot of similarities there, and I can't see, if they play the way they're playing and they're capable of, they could really take this championship out this year.
They've put themselves in a position. Now, just before I sort of go on, I guess for those listening in, Matt Burston was probably one of the most efficient bigs in the NBL, and had the best hands catching those wayward passes and make the guards look good. But in comparison, if I may, Bogut finishes at about 56% around the 2-point land. Cam Oliver 53%, Nick Kay 51%. Matt Burston's not as high octane as Cam Oliver, so maybe might not be. Although there was a few dunks there, Burst, which I do recall very vividly. I remember a little left hand off the right foot on top of Thomas Abercrombie, who thought he was going to contest a Burston layup and ended up getting put into the poster. Do you recall a few highlights like that above the rim?
There were very few and far between. So the 1 or 2 ones that did actually have it above the ring definitely etched to the memory. So I think I surprised myself that day. And it's funny because kind of my son, my 6-year-old's got a photo of that on his wall. So I think he's pretty proud of that dunk as well. Which I don't know. Sometimes you're blessed, and sometimes you feel a bit more athletic. You can jump a bit higher than you usually can. So, it was, I don't know, with the 56% or whatever you were saying, the shooting percentage, I don't think I shot too many shots outside the keyway, so that definitely helps the old percentage. And
I feel
guys, when I first
I think those efficiencies are just they're often not really respected as much when it comes to you've got the high flying, energetic, sort of naturally gifted athletes, but it goes unsung hero sort of status kind of thing when a player can be that good efficiency wise and just get the job done. Just the blue collar kind of workers, they really do carry a team or a core group of players into those finals. But Matty, what about if we talk a bit about life after basketball? If I may, you sort of started with a bit of the home business, and you've also involved in a finance sort of corporate gig, and now you've got another little career change. Can you walk me through just a little bit of that transitional period?
Yeah, so when I was playing, I always sort of had a bit of a passion for numbers, and had some one of my good friends, a bit of a mentor, who's a bit of a share trader, investor from home, sort of worked for himself and built a business up from scratch. So in my later stage of my career, I took a bit more of an interest and actually sort of studied got a diploma in share trading investment, just so I sort of had the knowledge and the runs on the board, and have done that on the side, or be a bit of a sort of stay-at-home dad investor type thing initially. So that was a great sort of career change where I could sort of still have an active part in young kids. I had 4-year-old and 2-year-olds, so I could be there for the pickups and drop-offs and sort of help sort of raise the kids as well. So it's great from working from home, but it also has its negatives in that it's pretty lonely lifestyle. You're just sort of sitting in front of a computer all day, not really having that sort of interaction with other adults. So I was keen for a bit of a change and more have that on the sideline to do and see what other sort of career paths can be paved. And actually had a great meeting with the guy Steve O'Malley, who was involved with the Cairns Taipans for many years. I'm sure he's still on the board actually. So absolute legend, and he is the GM of Experience Co, a big sort of tourism company up here in Cairns, and pitched me an idea about sort of who they were keen on a business analyst role, where someone that can sort of really crunch the numbers and see what's working efficiently and what's not and what can be tweaked, and it definitely it was great for my sort of skill set, and that I'm sort of numbers based. That's the way my brain works, and really loved that opportunity and that career, and was doing that on the sideline. I was doing that wholeheartedly, but then also in the background, my wife encouraged me to sort of try out for aviation firefighter. They were just opening recruits. So
aviation firefighter, Aviation firefighter. So at each airport, all the 26 sort of major airports, they've all got their sort of own fire station in case, last resort, something, or plane gets redirected.
The plane gets go, you've got to go down, but they also not only do that, they're sort of the first responders, medical emergencies at the airport, and any sort of car crashes around the sort of 1 kg restriction, and so there's a lot more that happens. And so in the end, had this in the background, and kept sort of progressing through the interview process, the aptitude test, the fitness test, all that sort of stuff, and I was fortunate enough to sort of land a position and career in that. So in the end, decided, look, this is too good an opportunity to turn down as far as work-life balance goes. Such a brilliant sort of lifestyle, and so meant that by accepting, I had to go down to Melbourne for a 4-month recruitment course, which was obviously a bit of a burden, pretty tough on my wife and 3 young kids, but managed to get through that, and now sort of living the dream. It's got a lot of similarities in that what I miss about the basketball, and that you're in a team environment. You got the banter with the guys, and in this case girls as well, in the locker room and stuff like that. And so it's a really good sort of team environment, really good culture, and a lot of fun. So I'm definitely happy to say that this is going to be me for the next 30 years. I'm happy to sort of have that as my sort of transition into career. And a lot of people would never sort of leave the job. They sort of retire in it. It's such a great lifestyle. So that's sort of the way things have panned out for me.
Absolutely. Girls and guys in the locker room, let's hit the showers. Separate shower. Okay, so no worries. Now, so last question, I guess I have firefighter now. I think you know where I'm going with this. The calendar burst. The calendar is when's that due out? Is it a financial calendar? Is it a year, January to December? What do we expect?
Well, most calendars do go January to December, so I think I missed out this year, unfortunately. I've probably got a fair bit of work to go, so maybe 2025 you might see me in the calendar, but definitely not anytime soon. But we'll see how we go.
Matt Burston, thank you for chatting.
No worries. Too easy, mate.
Thank you to Matt Burston once again. And interesting, Pikey, there's some parallels there with South Dragons and the Taipans there, coming from seemingly, nothing years the year before into, something special. So it can happen as shown by Matty's team, and a good team that gets put together that just sort of ticks the boxes throughout the year. Then they put themselves in a fantastic position to, push for the championship.
Yeah, I remember that season, that horrible season. First of all, the Dragons, there was so much hope going into it. They had spent up on a coach. I think it was Mark Price who came in as a coach, and by the end of it, he had Shane Hill as a player coach, and things just kept going from bad to worse. But all of a sudden, you bring in Brian Gorgon, you end up with a hell of a roster. Joe Ingles, showing us that he was going to become an NBA superstar. The injury to, I think it was Cortez Groves, ended up being a blessing to get Dante Smith coming in.
Yeah. Joe Ingles to NBA, Dante Smith to upper level Europe, Tremel Darden even gets a huge bump up and has been upper level Europe for these the remaining years since. Adam Gibson, a 400 gamer, as
Mika Vukona.
Yeah, well, I know Mika Vukona goes on for a three-peat not too long after. But yeah, those teams where there's something special, I think there's some pretty good players on the rising sort of star sort of trajectory. So it could just very well be the case for the Taipans this year. Absolutely,
all the signs are there for it to happen. The Taipans are putting themselves in a real good position to have a crack at the title. Let's just hope that if they do succeed and win the championship, that they don't find a quick demise like the Dragons did as well.
Yeah, no, do copy the Dragons, but don't copy what they did the year after and fold. No. So I don't think that'll be the case. There's a lot better foundations in place. So I've got no doubts about that. But
parallels.
Certainly they won't.
Amazing parallels between you and Matty as well. As you said, you both grew up in WA. You played under 18s together. You both played your early NBL careers at the Wildcats, and you both end up playing at the Taipans, ending up your careers at the Taipans and living in Cairns beyond your NBL careers too.
Yeah, it's fun. It's obviously fun to have a teammate still in the area. Usually, players will often head back to their home cities or whatever. It's such a great spot up in Cairns that, both of us, it's through our own reasons decided to stay and keep the family rooted into the local sort of schools and things. So, it's just been cool to have someone close by.
All right, now Friday night, Cairns Convention Centre. It's remarkable to think that this will be the last home game of the regular season for the Taipans, but they've won 10 of the 13 so far, so finishing at 11-3 at home would be terrific, but just getting that monkey off the back against the Hawks would be very nice. They've lost those 3 games already to them, and this time the mellow ball won't be there, but when you think about it, the Hawks have won 5 games this season and 3 of them are against Cairns. They can't afford to make it 4 on Friday night.
No, and I don't think the Taipans will allow it. They've fooled me once, fooled me twice. 3 times is too much. Enough's enough, and I think that the players will go, right, this is not happening on our watch. If we're going to be any kind of serious about post-season play, this is an absolute no-brainer of a game to turn up at and absolutely go for broke and send a message. So I would expect nothing less than, like I said before, a 14-point win, if not sort of more. But it could come down to getting some guys who have played less minutes a little bit more confident. But I'm not going to write that off yet either. It's got to be one from the get-go. It's got to be all players switched on. Hawks are a dangerous team. They've got some good shooters. They've got some, really good sort of bigs as well. So they've got to be, Taipans are going to have to be on it, but they're just going to have to be clinical for all 4 quarters. There can't be a lap. There can't be this casual cap sort of behaviour which does creep in from time to time. If the Taipans have sensed a bit of a lax game, they sort of, they'll bust past someone and casually hold the ball on one hand and try and finish with a bit of a fancy sort of flair. But you got to get 2 hands on the ball. You got to protect, your shot as you go up. You got to just do all the little things and not try and make it too cutesy. You've just got to finish the play properly and be sure of it, because this is a game where you need to put your foot down.
Now, for the first ever time, the NBL is also celebrating Indigenous round right across the league this weekend, and I get the feeling it means a little bit more in Cairns, given there's a natural, pretty strong Aboriginal heritage and population in the area, but you've also got Nate Jawai, who's very proud of his culture, and rightfully so, and he's had a hand in designing the Taipans uniform that they'll wear, which looks tremendous. If you get a chance to go and pick up a copy at the Taipan store or on game night on Friday, do so. Do you feel like it means a little bit more when you have a strong connection in your region to Indigenous people, but also a player on your team that is Indigenous as well?
Well, it's a fantastic initiative and long overdue, and rightly backed by Paddy Mills driving it last year as well. Yeah. But just a great thing as well to have Nate, really leading the charge, I guess, in terms of what this game means. I will say this: when growing up in Perth, we didn't have many Indigenous at my school, for instance. Like, it was very rare, like very low percentage Indigenous, at our school. I'm really excited in Cairns that my kids can be at a school where there's approximately 40% Indigenous kids at the school, and amongst other things, obviously Japanese, Chinese, a lot of a really good mix. But all of my daughters and my kids' friends, they've got Indigenous friends. They're it's just a normal thing. Like in Perth, I never got that as a kid. So it's really exciting to be in a community that has such a diverse mix, and you definitely feel that in this region, really well represented by Indigenous and Torres Strait Islander people as well. And it's a great thing, and to have this round means so much for the Cairns team, and and all the other clubs, of course, but just in particular our region, it really does mean a lot, and I think it will be well supported at the game. So really looking forward to. I love the jerseys; they're great,
me too.
Great design, and they've all got a great story behind them. I'm keen to find out more about even the other team stories as well for their designs. So fantastic to see the NBL get behind the Indigenous round, and can't wait to see all the extra visuals on the screens around it.
Absolutely. Well said.
This episode of the Pikey and Loughz Show proudly brought to you by Cairns Total Physio. Less pain, more life.
Okay, now we're expecting a 14-point win for the Taipans on Friday night, which will pretty much guarantee a playoff spot. So let's hope that's what we get to see. Let's hope the Orange Army's out there in force. We want another crowd of 5,000 people there, because this is the last time you'll see the team before the playoffs. But before we get into all of that, Loughz, and get into Friday night, what can you leave us with?
Mate, it's going to be an absolute cracker. We need the 5,000 strong in the stadium to bring the boys home, and let's celebrate the end of what has been a very exciting regular season, but with a big eye on the prize of post-season play. But let's bring the boys home this Friday night for their last regular home game.